Hello everyone, Diane here. I hope you're all well. I'm in the studio this afternoon and painting against the dark. I decided today, after a great deal of thinking and pondering and changing my mind, and you know how it gets sometimes, to do a sort of wintry, snowy scene based on my home where I live. And so I've sort of simplified it all down, and this is my rough sketch here. And I've put one of the little buildings that we have here in the distance, and then there's some pine trees. To tell you the truth, they're actually mostly oaks here, but we do have some pines as well. So I've kind of modified these a bit to look like Christmas trees. Then there's our sheep and some hares and some chickens. So let's get started. I'm going to do the drawing in pencil. First of all, I'm going to actually draw it bit by bit, and I'm going to take my time because I'm feeling a little bit shaky at the moment, so I'm just going to do it slowly. So we'll start with the horizon line, and we're in an area here where the hills are gentle. It's all very gently sloping, nothing dramatic. So I might just actually bring that down a little bit further. Don't be afraid to use the eraser if you feel that you've got your line in the wrong place. And I'm bound to make plenty of mistakes. One of the problems here at the moment with the light is I need to buy some lamps. I really do, because we can't use the fluorescent lights in the afternoon because they make flickering. And so if I don't do the painting in the morning, I run out of light, and the camera can see fine. The Apple phone that we use to do the recording can see absolutely fine in the dark. In fact, if you take a photograph at night using this phone, you can see things that you didn't even know were there. It's amazing, quite amazing. But you can't see them. So anyway, I'm just drawing in a little house. And by the way, if I talk absolute rubbish and you have no idea what I'm going on about, don't take any notice. I'm English, I can't help it. I talk rubbish most of the time. Okay, so I'm just dropping in a little house here. I have to admit that the style of this painting is not my normal style, although it's been adapted by me. There's an English artist called Anne Much, who Sylvia sent me a work by, and she introduced me to her work. And this is somewhat in the style, I would say. It's not a copy by a long chalk, because this is my little hen house here in this corner, and I'm just going to put a Christmas tree in here. But Anne Much is she's a kind of quirky artist who paints little scenes with animals and things. Very the word for that kind of painting is naive. Excuse me, which isn't meant to be an insult. Okay, so we've got some fencing around our property. That's our fencing. This is an homage to Graham, who put the fencing up for us. Lovely oak fences. And they will be standing long after he isn't. Or me, come to that, hopefully. Tamsin says. Put some more pines in the background here, just behind the barn. And all the barns here, well, the small ones, the old ones, are all stone, built of solid stone, so that's nice. And we'll put a little chimney on here, because often here where we live, the barns used to be houses. So they've often got chimney pots. It's not quite right. And that's actually not in the right place. Hang on. Bear with me. That should be at the end. Yeah, people used to live in these buildings, and now they don't. Okay, right, so I'm going to put a few of our sheep. I'm not happy with this horizon line, that's not right. It should go much more low like that. That's it. Because as I said, it's not a hilly area, we'll put the sky in there. Okay, so one sheep starting off, and we have a flock of Jacob's sheep of our own breeding here, which is nice. And they have horns. And I'm doing this in pencil, and then I'm not going to rub the pencil out, but I'm going to paint over the top of it because it'll give it a nice texture. I think that ear's too big. I'm going to pretend it's snowed, and we're going to have all of these sheep going to be standing in the snow. So the best way to do the head of a sheep is to just do like a link of 3 sausages, like that, one for the top of the head and one for each ear. And then if they've got horns, you just pop the horns in there, like that. And then their body kind of comes from the top there, between the ear and the top of the head, and you just bring that round. And you can sort of let the sheep grow with your pencil. They do tend to have long, narrow faces, don't they? And then their legs are kind of thin and spindly. The eyes are well back in the head, quite high. And we'll have a third one here. One sausage, 2 sausages, 3 sausages. And then we'll just do the head. And sometimes it helps to sort of imagine you've got a kind of oval in the front there, see? The front half of the sheep. It's like that, and then a bit of a cylinder going backwards. This time last year, all our sheep were expecting lambs, but we don't have a ram anymore. So we won't have any more lambs, which is probably just as well, because we haven't got very much land and we're just about at our limit. Okay, so there's the 3 sheep standing on the ground. 1, 2, 3, like that. They tend to line up. We just noticed that today. We're taking some photos and they just kind of go into lines. It's quite funny. What we're waiting for. And then over here, I'm going to put some hares or rabbits. Make sure they're smaller. That's one, and we have this one going this way with his head. And then we'll have one down. They could be rabbits. Did I say they could be rabbits? The hares are rabbits, so it doesn't matter. Probably more likely to be rabbits if there's 3 of them. And then over here, I'm going to put 3 of our red hens, which are being absolutely, completely useless at the moment. We haven't had an egg in a month. Now, if you want the sketch to this, it will be available on our website for free, dianeantone.com. Just pop over there, have a look round. Maybe buy yourself one of our mugs with one of our designs on. We've got 3 to choose from, I think. But for free, you can download these sketches. We also have some collections of sketches too. We have a collection of birds and a collection of flowers and various things, so go and have a look. They're great fun to download and trace and paint, because the drawing, as you can see, takes quite a long time, doesn't it? Right, so then I'm going to pop in here a little bit of vegetation and a few grasses over this side, which will mostly be done with the paint. And then I thought perhaps we could say, oh, it's what's the word? Dusk, and there's a crescent moon going down or coming up over the horizon there. Something like that. Okay, so now we need to paint them. I'm just checking the camera to make sure I've still got light on the picture here, and I think there is. You have to bear with me on this one because it could turn out to be, well, we'll see. Right, so I'm going to do the sky in cobalt blue. And I'm just going wet into dry. And this paper, by the way, is Clairefontaine Etival, which is 100% cellulose, well-sized paper, which is to say sizing doesn't have anything to do with the fact that it's A4 or 8.5 by 11. Sizing means it has got a substance in it like glue, really, which stops the paint from sinking in too badly and enables you to wash the paint off if you make a mistake, and to move it around a little bit, whilst at the same time allowing you to do nice bleeds and wet in wet. So it's a good paper, Etival it's called. There's a link on our website as to where to buy it. You can get packs of 50 on Amazon, and that's a pretty good value for money. I think it's about $35 for 50 sheets of basically letter-sized paper. I'm not going to mess around with the sky, I'm just going to leave it like that. And I'm going to paint the moon in Naples yellow. And if it bleeds, that's fine, because it will just be like a glow. So I might even paint over the lines a little bit and let it glow a bit, like the moon tends to. And I might just drop a little bit of Naples yellow. I quite like Naples yellow on the horizon, because often it just warms it up a little bit. So, and then I've got olive green, And Olive is going to paint some pine trees, and we're not going to worry about them running because we really actually want them to. So we just do those kind of roughly in different shades of green, different heights, however they go, doesn't matter. Maybe this one will do it darker because it's just behind the house. But just any old how, really. And then I'm going to paint the roof in the sort of slate blue colour that they actually are. I'll put a little bit of brown near the top and the chimney as well. I'll just do that in brown because we need it to stand out a little bit from the blue of the sky. So then the stony structure of the building is a sort of light beigey brown. I'll just pop a little bit of shadow in there to give it a bit more dimension. And then I've got a window there which is nice and dark. Very small windows we have in these houses here. And that's a door. And then just put a piece of wood over the top of the door. Hold the door up. Okay, and then perhaps we'll put some, the roofs are usually slate tiles. So they're always grey like that. And they're always falling off too. Okay, now I'm going to pretend that it's been snowing, and I'll come back and put some snow on those pine trees later. But so I'm just going to pop a pine in here, another one. I'm not going to paint the land, the ground behind, because I'm going to pretend it's covered in snow. And I'm going to paint now the fence. You can call that a gate, if you like. There we are. And maybe at this point we could put just a little bit of blue on the ground there. Very light blue to show a few shadows in the snow. Okay, do you know what? I can hardly see. So God knows what this is going to look like by the time it's finished. But, you know, if I could look at the camera, I'd be perfect. No problem at all. The camera can see fine, like I said before. I'm saying this because Tamsin's sitting beside me and I know she's thinking to herself, oh, for God's sake, Mother, shut up, stop moaning. No, she wouldn't say a thing like that. She's just giving me the evil eye. No, but it's true. It is true. Here we go. We've got the ears now. Und. Was? Ich spreche Deutsch. Und die Ohren. Und die. Was ist das denn? Das Gesicht. Silvia, das ist für dich. Horns. Ears. And face. Okay, now this is a very subtle little painting, isn't it? I hope nobody thinks, oh, that's really dull, oh, it's not very bright. Well, just look at the robins then. Naples yellow for the shadow on the sheep. And a little bit of blue, cobalt blue as well, which blended with Naples yellow doesn't go green, it goes grey. So the sheep doesn't go very green. And then back to sepia brown for the legs. We're going to keep these very simple because if I don't, I'm going to run out of time and I'll put the legs on top of the chickens or something daft. Okay. I'm just going to lift out a little bit of the dark in the centre. Not much, just a kind of hint, because my sheep would complain if I painted them like black-faced Leicesters. They would say, "We're Jacobs, Mother." Used to have a dog called Jacob, and I called him Jacob because when we got him, he was a puppy, Keysond, and he looked like, guess what? A Jacob's sheep. Well, he didn't really, but he did a bit. Put some eyes in. Nose. Yeah, I might have to do a little bit of correcting of this before we put the video up, just because I'll have to turn the lights on. I'm going to be the only YouTuber who ever painted her paintings in the dark. I'm going to be famous. It'll be called Painting in the Dark with Diane. Do you think it might catch on? This is burnt sienna for the chickens. The eggless chickens. I'm going to have a word with these birds. Yeah. Hello, bird. That was a bird flying into the window. What colour are their legs, Tamsin? I can never remember what colour the legs of a chicken are.
Usually yellow.
Yellow, right, okay. Put in their combs and their wattles in red. I remember a few years ago I'd never painted a chicken, and I used to say to people, "Oh, it's so difficult, I know, start with a chicken." But actually, once you've painted one or two, as I think it's, what's her name, Karen? No, not Karen Rice, no, Karen Simmons, an old painter from England. She's the one, she says, "Oh, they're really easy, actually." I'm like, okay, take your word for it, I'll give it a go. And then, you don't ever look back, do you? Okay, there's the 3 red hens. And then finally, over here, we've got their hairs. And we're going to do them in a sort of bluish grey. So cobalt blue and burnt sienna. And because they're sort of greyish. And they're in profile pretty much. I'm not going to bother about any details on these. I won't bother to say it again. It's because I can't see. But that's okay. We'll sort you out later, Rabbit. But you've got the idea. Not quite sure what went wrong there. That's better. Just lift that 3rd ear out. He doesn't want the 3 ears, does he? But you can see that you can actually correct on this paper. Some papers that don't like that, having that done to them. Okay, so we're getting towards the end now. So I'm going to pick up some very pale cobalt blue. and just put the shadows of the sheep in fairly randomly underneath them, and then the shadows of the rabbits similarly, and then the shadows of the chickens. And then I'm going to grab, I think I'm going to go for the rigger. I think. And let's do some brown, grey brown twiglets. Oh, do you remember twiglets, Tamsin? Marmite.
Yeah.
Just a few bits and pieces there. And on the other side we might, I don't know whether to go for a greenish kind of thing. I don't know. We've got a bit of green there, so we probably could. A few kind of bits of grass on this side. And just because it's Christmas, just pick up some cadmium red and we'll put a few berries on here for the birds, which are going to be flying in from overseas in a minute. Let's put some birds in the sky, won't we? A couple over here. That sheep needs a bit more shadow. She looks as if she's standing in midair. Okay, now I'm not even going to try to do anything with a brush. I'm going to get my 0.1 pen and let's put in some Canadian geese flying in from Vancouver because all the roads are down. Isn't that terrible? I just heard on the internet that all Vancouver is cut off. Now shut up, all you Albertans. You're not allowed to laugh. Cut off by, oh my God, climate change. So, having got to this point, if you want to give your thing a bit more structure, you can come in with a pen and add some sharpening up lines, or you can leave it as you find it. And I might do that when I can turn the lights on, but I'll leave that for the minute. Now, there was something I was going to do to that tree, wasn't there? Oh, I was going to put a bit of snow on it, wasn't I? That's right. So I need some white ink or white gouache. White gouache. It's French. Gouache. Hello, Russell. Russell says, oui, ça s'appelle gouache, maman. Oui. C'est pas gouache. That's the way my husband talks French. Actually, he's very good. He's not a native English speaker, so he doesn't care if he makes stupid mistakes when he's in France or Spain. It's all the same to him. There we go. There's some snow on the trees, and we put a little bit of snow on the top of the roof. Put a little bit of snow on the fence. I could get quite carried away by doing this. You want to put lots more snow on there. Shall I put some snow on the chicken? Or on the sheep? Sometimes when they wake up in the morning, they've got snow on them. Poor things. Right then, so there we are. That's done. Alhamdulillah. Perhaps a little bit of snow in the sky. Should we put a few bits of spatter in? There we go. It's snowing. It's Christmas. So today I'm going to have a go at painting a pine cone. This is a photo of a white pine cone. And we're going to do a very loose version of this, which is going to involve basically scribbling in the lights and then the darks for the cone, and then just indicating some of the needles on the actual branches very lightly. So just to make a sketch, really, just to get started with pine cones, because they are quite tricky, really. There's lots of different ways of painting them, and I'm going to try to show you various different ways of doing this. And so I thought we would start with a loose one and then perhaps do some that are a little bit more structured. So we're going to just draw in a branch like this. As far as I can tell from, we don't have white pines here. Well, I'm surrounded by pines, but not these ones, not these, what would you call them? Super elegant, actually, because they have this amazing shape, the long, slim pine cone, and then these elegant, long needles. We have short, stubby ones here in Brittany. Everything in Brittany is short and stubby. The cats have got super short legs, so short that their stomachs practically touch the ground. And the Bretons, well, yes, least said, soonest mended. The average height of the average French person is, I think, 5'10" male over the whole of France. In Brittany, the average height is about 5'3". I feel huge here. I'm 5'3", and this is the only place I've ever lived where I feel like a giant. It's ridiculous. Anyway, I'm just drawing basically the outline. I'm not going to draw in the scales. I'm just drawing in the outline so that we get the shape roughly right. And so that's that. And then we're going to have a little twiggy bit coming down here, and a slightly bigger twiggy bit coming down here. And then I'm going to put the needles here. I hope I've left myself enough space. Now, one way of doing this is to do the painting, is to paint the outside edges of the scales light. And if you've got this kind, where's it gone? Here we are. This kind, this is a short, fat, stubby one. This, and as you can see, it's interesting this, because when you look at a pine cone properly, and something I rarely do, but I did today, you can see the ends of the scales are light, and then going in, it's dark. So one way of drawing this is to, like this, I'll show you. First of all, draw the light bits. I nicked this off the internet. Draw the light bits like that, and then fill in the dark bits like that, and then fill in even more dark bits, and lo and behold, it stands out like that. So that's a good way to do it. That's not what I'm going to do today. So there we are, and the needles are going to come out like this and go down like that, I hope. So that's pine cone, can go and sit over there. We'll come back to you later. Right, the brush. Let's make sure I've got water in it. Yes, I have. I think I've got enough water in it. So I'm going to mix up a kind of light golden brown using quinacridone gold and burnt sienna. And the colour isn't really that important. It doesn't really matter exactly what it is. And then I'm going to kind of, just looking for my reference material here. I'm going to basically do a sort of random, well, you can see what I'm doing. Maybe I might add a little bit of pink. So we forget all about the fact that it's a regular kind of structure with a very geometric pattern to it and all the rest of it, which it is. Forget all about that and just plonk in some colour and leave gaps. That's the key. Leave plenty of gaps. And then while it's still wet, come in and drop darks like this, sort of into that light colour, but sometimes out. This is sepia. And then just let that run for a bit. And then you might want to do the branch. So I've got sepia with burnt sienna. And I'm just going to do a very broken, trying to make it as broken. There's a very strong tendency in all of us to make everything neat and tidy, except for my bedroom, of course. But don't. Try to let it jump around a bit. It's very hard to do that. I don't know why. I suppose some people are better at it than others, but I do find that difficult. I always want to join up all the dots. And then where you did the darks, come back again with some more dark, perhaps a bit thicker, perhaps a bit richer. Just go over the same places. Maybe add a little bit of pink. See how that's dried so faint? It's just crazy. I don't know why. So I don't know why. I don't even want to talk about it. I must get some of those core paints and see if they're any better at holding their colour. Now we don't want to go on and on and on about this too much. I think I might want to add a little bit of black in there too. So I'll go to my black or Payne's grey, doesn't matter, and just put some of that in. Because if this acts true to form and continues to lighten up as it dries, then my shadowy areas are going to disappear. Okay, I said we'd have a little twiggy bit there too, didn't I? All right, so I have to leave that to dry a bit, and so then I'm going to do the needles, and I've got some olive green here, and I've excuse me, I have mixed up a little puddle of it like that. So I'm just putting my little dish like that so that I've got somewhere I can dip my pen into. And then so I'm going to do that with this bamboo pen, and then I'm just going to do it like this. They're pretty straight, so I'm having to make a bit of effort not to bend them. And these ones over here, quite long. This is one of those things where you can just do as many as you feel like. You're not limited, because to be quite honest, the average pine tree is covered in these. But sometimes a little bit of white space is a good thing, so make sure you don't overdo it, I suppose. And that seems to be drying okay. And just add a little bit more in the center there, near to the twig where it's coming out. There's a woman, I don't know what her name is, she's on YouTube, and she does absolutely amazing white pine cones that look absolutely realistic. You look at them and you think it's a photo. It's amazing. I can't do that. This is all I can do. So then I'm going to take my rigger, which is my long-haired brush, and I'm going to try to avoid spraying myself, and I'm going to spatter. I find it works best when I spatter towards myself, which is why I say I'm going to try and avoid getting it on me. But also you can go in the opposite direction too. So that was green, and then do the yellow that way, because if you come towards you, you get a kind of oval sort of dot. If you go away from you, you get more of a round dot, like that. Okay, so I'm going to put a few black spatters on the cone, and then I'm going to wait for that to dry and see whether it's a complete mess or whether it's halfway worth doing anything with. So I have to rub out the pencil marks, so we'll see what happens when that's dry. So the painting's dry now, and I'm just going to come in with a little bit of white gouache just to put in a few little highlights there. You might want to think about that as being a touch of snow or something like that, and you can do that as much as you want, so just to, I don't know, make it look a bit more realistic. And then that's just white gouache. And then you might want to just darken down the pine needles a little bit. You might want to just put in one or two extra darker lines there. Doesn't need very much. Okay, so that's pretty much it. You could put in a bit of background, a bit more green in the back, or you could put some blue. You can play around as much as you like with the white, just to give more shape. I've sharpened up the edges here a little bit too with the dark brown, just because sometimes you can just give a little, oh, that's not dark enough. A little dark edge can make the shape a little bit better. But yeah, fiddle around as much as you like. Now, if you watched the last video I did, previous to this one, which was the Red Cardinal on holly, you will have seen me preparing this background. And now it's dry, and I have various different things that I can do at this point, because somehow this background has got to be improved. The dots that I put on towards the end, I must have put them on a little bit too late, and they didn't bleed into the background as well as they should have. But all is not lost, because we can adjust that. And the other thing is, this is very blue, and I want to put robins on this painting, and I want them to be quite nice and red. So I need to get rid of the blue that's behind the birds. Now, because this is a lifting paint, I hope, for example, ultramarine blue does not stain. So I should be able to just come in with water on my brush, wet the paint that I put on earlier, and like this one here, I should be able to just, like magic, lift that out. It takes a few goings over, but even just using a soft brush, you don't need to and you don't want to use a stiff brush for this, although it might be quicker. Chances are you damage the paper a little bit, or even quite a lot. And you don't need to get all of it out, but I think it really helps to lift out some of the extra paint that you've got there that you don't really want. Of course, if I'd have known what I was going to paint on this in the first place, I could have masked out the subject and then it wouldn't have been painted in with the rest. But 9 times out of 10, the background turns out different to what you expect. So you end up wanting to paint something different from what you've masked out, and so on and so on and so forth. Life being what it is. Hello, Arthur. So there we are. So that's that. Now, the second thing is, these dots are not particularly scenic. So there's a couple of ways you could hide them. You're going to paint over some of them. And you could do that. You could put a lot of spatter on to cover them up. But now we all know about this bokeh process. What we can do instead is we can just pretend we did it on purpose. So we come in with our stencil and we just lift off the offending dots. Hey presto. And we have now a nice bokeh circle. Ta-da! And we can go over the whole thing doing the same thing as we would if we were doing bokeh right from the get-go. So I think I'll do that while I'm drinking my tea, and then I'll be back with you in a second to paint the birds. So that's that. And now I'm going to talk just briefly about the colours I'm using. A little dash of black here and there, especially for the eyes. Cadmium red, of course, for the breasts of the birds. Artistic license, mixed with some quinacridone gold, just to give a slightly more natural colour. I've got a green here. I'm not sure which one that is. Probably sap green. It really doesn't matter a jot because it's going to be mixed with other colours when it goes to make the holly. Quinacridone, like I said, this is burnt sienna. I may or may not need a dash of violet, Windsor violet. I've got my white if I lose the eyes of the birds. I've got that to bring back the lights. And of course, at the end, I'm going to liberally splatter the whole thing with white paint to make it look a bit like snow. So, let me see. Here we go. Let's start with a number. I think I'm going to use a number 7. That's a number 9. Now, where's my 7 here? Yes, a number 7 round brush, nylon brush. These are Drawwell ones, which you can get from Japan if you want, but any brush will do really. And so let's start by picking up a little bit of quinacridone gold mixed with some burnt sienna. Oh, there's another colour. There we are, sepia or burnt umber for the brown. A little bit of that to paint the fork handle. Fork handle. The handle of the garden fork. There we are, and then it needs a bit of shadow, so we'll mix some violet with the brown, and we'll just put some shadow in. Doesn't need to be too geometrical. And then I'm going to do the top of the handle of the fork. I'll do that in brown too. But I'm going to paint snow on the top of that when that's dry. So just put a happy mélange of assorted colours on there, and you don't need to keep it too straight because after all okay, so that's that, and then we go down to the the actual the business end of the spade, so to speak. We don't need to go into too much detail there, do we? So just indicate that briefly. Put a bit of violet in there so it ties in with what's above. And we'll leave that for the minute, if not forever. Then holly berries. Do them first because they're fun. So we just roughly indicate some circles here. Leave a little hole so we can put the lights in. On a holly tree, the berries are usually clustered together and they tend to be all roughly the same size. So we put a little bit of shadow underneath the bottom edge of each berry just to define it from its neighbour. We can let that run a little bit and then we'll put the light in later. And yes, the holly. We haven't got very many leaves here, so we can paint them reasonably accurately from the get-go. You could do them sploshy like I did in the last one, but this is just by way of a change. So we'll put in some quinacridone. And then, oh, I don't know, this is olive green. Let's put in some olive green. Make the spikes a bit spikier. And then you can, if you want to, you can draw in the veins with a sharp object. I used to use a cut-up credit card, and then I heard about glass pens, so I invested a small amount of money in one of them. I've heard some very interesting stories from people about their glass pens that they've discovered in the attic or other places like that they'd sort of forgotten they ever had them, and just trying to use them now. I hate waste, don't you? I hate it when I have to throw something away or can't find a use for it, or I've got too many of the same thing for some reason. I'm doing each holly leaf a different colour, a different green, and obviously a different shape. And in a different way as well, because, you know, it's interesting, isn't it, to just use different methods. And although I had drawn it, I'm kind of not taking much notice of what I drew. And then we might put a little bit more purple around behind the berries on the handle, just to, I don't know, why not? My New Year's resolution is to be a little bit more systematic after Christmas, after the New Year. Try and remember what paper it is I'm painting on. Because this was a this was a piece of paper I stretched a while ago, and I'm sorry, I can't tell you what it is. I think it might, I don't know what it is. I'm not going to even guess. I don't know, but it seems to be working okay, I suppose. Not too bad. And now for the birds. We will come in with a mixture of quinacridone gold and cadmium red. And paint that bit. And then, oh, that's the other colour I needed. Where's it gone? A little bit of cobalt blue to make the brown a bit softer. There we are. And then the underneath of the robin has a little bit of blue, which is quite convenient because there's quite a lot of blue on this paper, and then just drag that down like that. And then we'll pop his little legs on. And then we want some black for his eye. It gets a bit delicate. You need a point on your brush when it comes to this stage. So we'll just put that in like that. I might have to come back with a pen. Okay, so that'll do for him. Maybe I'll pop the snow in here. While I think of it, in case I forget. This is Winsor & Newton, what do you call it? Designer's gouache, white. Always loses a bit of its whiteness when it's dry. When it is dry, I'll put a little bit more blue on there, a couple of shadows to give it a bit more shape. That'll do for now. Excuse me while I have a little drink of my tea. Just darken down the bird a bit and let that sit. And then we'll do the other two, shall we? Little breast. Might use a pen for that eye because he's so small. And then this one here. Tiny wee bit of blue and then just drag that up. Let that blend. Same thing down here. Just blend that in a little bit. And then we'll put the legs in. Whoops, that's a bit slightly fat-legged. Like me. There we are, no worries, it still works. And then the beak is very tiny on the robin, so I'm going to get the pen out when that's dry. Meanwhile, I shall grab my expressive brush and we'll take some black. A bit of brown. just indicating a little bit of twig. Okie doke, now a little bit more snow, I think perhaps down here. Oh, and I did say we would put it on the berries, just with a little light. Try not to make them look too even. And I think it will need a little bit more shadow behind. Okay, now my pen will help me out here. The paper's dry. Now we'll just put some eyes into these birds. And if you do lose the light, don't worry, you can just pick up some white gouache if you feel it's important. That brush is no good. The one with a shorter head. Some people have size 000 brushes just for this purpose. You can see why the reason I'm not using a marker pen. I usually use a white pen for this, but there we are. Mine have all dried up. I need to get some more. Okay, so he's okay. I'm just going to emphasize his little legs a little bit. And then a tiny bit of bluey grey. And the snow. Maybe we'll put a little bit of snow here. And then maybe a few lights on the holly. I think he needs a bit more of a light in his eye. So does he. And then I think we'll do a bit of spatter. I think I might do it with the toothbrush. And then I think some nice blue as well, especially around the edges. Sometimes I quite like to do this, sort of indicate that there might be some greenery or something down there. Okay, I think I want to put, yeah, not with that brush though. There we are. Okay. Let's grab my clean water, bring that over here. I'm working on a sheet of Arches paper here from a pad. A pad of 9 by, I think it's 9 by 12. Yeah, 140 pounds of colour paper. So we will see how that goes. I think I should sit down. So let's start by dropping in. I'm not familiar with this paper, so this is going to be another one of those oh my god episodes, possibly. We'll see. So we'll just drop in some Naples yellow and some Potter's pink. And we'll take that up around the head and also up into the crest area, and we'll just put a little bit pink in there. And then she's got a fairly warm sort of brown wing. So we'll do that with this colour, which is raw umber. And then maybe drop in a bit more dark with the sepia. And that we want that to spread out, don't we? And then she's got kind of light grey legs, I think I could say. So we'll just drop a little bit of Payne's grey in there. And then the trick I like to use for making shadow on something like a bird's leg is just to first of all put the base colour in and then come in with the darker and just the tip of the brush. And just do some shadow there. And then also if you just drop a little bit here near to the body, you'll get a nice little bleed back into the body there. And then for the beak is light pink, so we might as well go for a little bit of red and a bit of potter's pink, I think. I'm going to keep that fairly unobtrusive there. Put that eye in. And there we are, she's pretty much done. Maybe we'll just darken down the underside of her beak a little bit. And then I'm going to switch back to the filbert for the male, and we'll start off with the bright red. He's more or less the same colour all over, except for his mask. And he's got some blue colour in his back, so we'll do that with purple, I think. Just pop some of that in there. And then back to the red for the tips of his wings. And then I suppose we should probably keep his breast fairly clean red. And a bit of purple at the end of his tail there. It depends how it dries up We might want to put some more red on there just to reinforce it. We'll just see how that goes. But then the mask. And for him, it's much more defined, much stronger, much darker than in the female. We will have to let that dry before we can do the beak, otherwise we'll end up with a muddy beak. But this paper is absorbing the water pretty quickly. His legs have got in this particular photo anyway, his legs are grey with a little bit of the pink tint. So we'll do the same thing. You just put them in with grey first of all, and then I'll come back in with an accent colour for the shadow, which we'll do in, I think, Potter's Pink. And that's the colour we want for the beak too, I think. So we do that. Yeah, and so really is a very bright bird. And then we want some black or Payne's grey for the eye. Okay, now it's time for the branches. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep these really simple because we don't want the colours to compete with the birds. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do them in a light grey, very light grey. So wet them first. It's just one way. You don't have to do them this way. You can do them whatever way you like, but I quite like this way. And then come along just at the bottom edge. That way you get the shadow and you just get something to indicate the solidity. Of the tree that the bird is standing on. And then for the berries, I think what I normally do is to paint in the berry, leave a dot for the light, and then come back with Winsor Violet. For the shadow, and just drop that in and let that run. And obviously you can save yourself a little bit of paint if you do all of them at once, but you have to work reasonably quickly, otherwise they will have dried. So then having done that bit, you come back with the purple. Just a touch, just a little tiny touch. And then that will bleed and give you a nice effect. And then, last thing, we're on to the pine. So I could use my rigger, but I'm happy with this. This brush does nice, fine, it's quite a new brush, so it does nice, fine lines, so that's okay. So we just pop some of those in. So there we are. And, you know, you look at it at this point and you say to yourself, oh, maybe just one or two little sharpnesses might. So like I often go back and I just put a little point on their toenails there, or maybe make the eye a little bit bigger, or perhaps a little mark on the beak. You don't want to do too much though, because the beauty of this is the freshness. Try to keep it fresh if you possibly can. Don't forget the stalks of the berries. So at this point, I'm going to let it dry and come back and see if it needs anything else, like, for example, a little bit of snow or something like that. So we just leave that for a tick, come back when it's dry. So it's dry now, and I'm just going to rub out some, if not all, of the pencil lines. Some of them are quite nice to keep. For example, the lines in the branches, I'm not going to get rid of those, but I think probably the ones in the pine needles should go, and any sort of superfluous lines around the outside edges of the birds can probably go. But it is kind of up to you. Some people don't take away any of the pencil. Some people try to get rid of it religiously. I think I fall somewhere between the two. I like some of the lines to stay, some of them I like them gone. So you just do what you feel is best. So there we are. I think that's pretty much cleaned up. quite like this shaving brush for getting rid of the rubbing outs. It's really rather good. Saves rubbing your hands all over it and making it greasy. So at this point, you know, you have to sort of decide various things like, am I going to do any spatter on here? Does it need it? Would it spoil it? Should I add a little bit to the leaves? Ditto. Does it need it? Would it spoil it? And I think on the whole, I'm reasonably sure that this is pretty much more or less where I want it to be. I'm going to add a little bit more red to the head of the male bird. Tiny bit more in the breast. Maybe just increase the red there a little bit. But there's definitely a danger of going too far. So I'm going to remove the tape. See what it looks like without this gaudy surround. Okay, so the first thing is to take a brush, and I think I'll probably use a number 11. And I'm going to just wet the area at the top of his head. And then I'm going to pick up some burnt sienna. And I'm just going to drop that in at the top here. And we won't go too close to the eye. So that's first up. And then we just want a little touch of cobalt blue just underneath the wing there. And then I'm going to put in some red. I'm going to put some cadmium red in, and I haven't mixed it with anything. I'm just putting it in from the palette there, because then I'm going to pick up some quinacridone gold, and I'm going to drop that in to this area and let the whole thing mix. And then I'm going to take some cobalt blue mixed with burnt sienna, and I'm just going to put that in the top line of the bird. I'm going to let that blend in. And then just soften off these edges down the bottom here in a few places. And we need to pop in his eye, so we want a smaller brush, and I'll probably just pick up a little bit of very dark brown. This is Van Dyke brown, I think. Yes. So nice and strong. We have to be very careful about this so that it doesn't run. There we are. So we're just going to let that do its thing and bleed a little bit, and hopefully that will be okay. And so now we want some, we're going to do a holly leaf. So we just put some quinacridone gold in there, and then add some blue to give us a sort of mélange of green. And the same down here. If you want to use what you might consider to be a more realistic green, you can always go for a pure green that's already pre-mixed. And in fact, I might drop a bit of that in just to give me some variety, but you really don't need to. And then for the berries, I always like to start with the light colour first. So we'll drop in the quinacridone and then we'll put in the red like that and let that bleed. And then let's just indicate pine needles just lightly, and then maybe a little bit of light brown for the stem behind and his feet. And then it's a good idea to just do the under side of the beak. Don't do too much there, and then let the whole thing dry. And that's basically it. And if you want to, you can, with the end of a feather, for example, you can just draw in the vein down the center of the holly. That's all it needs. So we'll let him dry, and then we'll come back and see if he needs any finishing touches. Okay, so he's more or less dry now, so I am just going to come back in with one or two little things. I'm just going to bring the colour around his eye in a little bit closer and darken that a little bit over the top there, and straighten out this line here a little bit. And I think I might just put a tiny bit of shadow underneath his eye there too. Okay. And then we'll let that dry, obviously, and then that will be fine. And I've rubbed out most of the lines that were my guidelines. And I'm going to come in with a little bit of a sort of purpley shadow colour just on the underneath of the berries, just to give them a bit more definition. So we'll just do that and then soften that with a little bit of water, just add a little bit of water to let that bleed in a little bit. And then I'm going to lift a little bit of the colour on the holly to give some highlights. Like that. So as that gets a little bit more shape. And you could ink this now if you wanted to. You could go around it and do pen and ink around and to define it more. You could play with it a bit more, but it's actually, I think, absolutely fine like that. I've just indicated his foot there very lightly. I'm not going to define that very much, but I might just put a little bit of shadow underneath it so that you can see it a little better. The rest of his body, his legs, his tail, his wings and everything, they're not there. This is Essence of Robin. Today we're going to do a kind of Christmas wreath that's sort of appropriate for a Christmas card, I think. Quite keen on drawing cardinals, so I've decided to put a pair of cardinals on the bottom of this wreath, and then I'm going to just do, this is kind of 2/3 of a circle, which I've drawn. You could use a saucer or something like that. I used a compass, a set of compasses, because we happen to have them, but if you don't have that, you don't need, you can just use a saucer. And I've done it in pencil, and now I'm just going to go over the whole thing, ink it all in, so that you can see me doing the drawing without me being too, what's the word, on the spot, so to speak, with the drawing, because, we don't need stress, do we? Anyway, you can download this sketch if you would like to from dianeantone.com. It's free. Just help yourself, pop on over there, and you can download it for free. So, so I'm just going to be putting these in. I'm using a Staedtler pigment liner. You could use a Faber-Castell. I've got those as well now. Just got a whole bunch of stuff. Came back from our place in Spain where I'd left it before when the pandemic happened. Faber-Castell, these are artist pens, but the fine, it comes in SFMB, bold, medium, fine, super fine, I guess. So that's another alternative, but I'm not 100% sure that these are completely, I think they are waterproof. Anyway, I'm used to the Staedtler pigment liner, so that's what I'm going to use today. I find that and I'm drawing on a piece of Etival watercolour paper, £140 watercolour paper. Any good paper will do, Strathmore, Bockingford. If you want to use Arches, there's no reason why not. One of the nice things about doing it like this, where you draw the pencil sketch first and then you come in again and ink over it before you paint it, there's something to be said for that. If you don't mind having a pen and ink rather than just pure watercolour, which of course we do quite a lot of pure watercolour, don't we? But this is quite a fun thing because you can alter it as you go along. So you do your first sketch and then you come in with the ink, and you're never going to go over all of the lines. And as you go along, you think, oh, I think that would look better like that, or I won't do that bit. So anyway, it gives you a chance to, what's the word? Extemporize, that's the word, I think. Make it up as you go along, in other words. This is meant to be a Christmas bauble. So try and get that sort of round. And these are going to be sprigs of fir or pine. Talking about baubles, I was thinking about this Bocky thing. Is anyone interested in seeing a demonstration of Bocky? If so, can you put something in the comments below? It seems to be everywhere at the moment. I don't know, I can't make up my mind what I think, but I'm willing to give it a try. It's So what I'm doing, I've got the idea is there's a sort of woody stem going up here and taking the whole thing around the circle, which we'll paint in afterwards. And here's another glass bauble. They're interesting to paint, aren't they? There's a lot of there are some on the internet that are not very good, but it is hard to make them shiny. So we won't worry about that. You know, you can get ones that are sort of matte, can't you? We'll pretend that ours aren't shiny. And then here, I'm going to have a little bunch of mistletoe above the two lovebirds. I heard that Red Cardinals are very good at pairing for life. So to put them under the mistletoe seems appropriate, doesn't it? Oops, that's a bit of a funny shape, never mind. Okay, so that's that. And now what I have to do is rub out the pencil lines. This ink dries fairly quickly, so it's not too much of a problem. Getting rid of the pencil. And now we have to think about colours. Obviously the cardinal is red, so I've got Old Holland. This is not sepia, as it says on there. This is permanent red. Quinacridone gold, couldn't live without it. Black, which makes a good dark green if you mix it with quinacridone. Or you could, that might be Payne's Grey, but it could be Payne's Grey. Payne's Grey is good for that too, if I can find it. The reason Payne's Grey is good for it is because it has a slight blue tint to it, so you could use either of those. So then we will be using also a few of these colours that I've got on my tray over here. Probably maybe olive green. I don't know. As I come to the colours, I'll let you know if I pick one of those. Just check we're back in frame. There. Yeah, okay. Okay, now, question now is which brush am I going to use? I'm kind of, what's the word? Leaning towards my Kuretake water brush here. I don't know if that's a good idea or not. Maybe I will. Now, what do you call it? Mistletoe is bluish. It's a bluish green. So we want a bluish green, and I think it's possible that I might paint it with hooker's green here with a little bit of blue in it. A little bit of blue. I'm not sure it matters which blue. Something like that. That's hooker's green and a little bit of blue. Could be anything. Turquoise, something like that. That's probably too blue. We'll see what that dries like. And then the holly. I'm not going to try and keep within the lines here. This is going to be one of those paintings where these what do you call them? These pen lines are just a guide. The berries, I think, are sort of yellowish colour on mistletoe, or are they white? I don't know exactly. Well, I'm going to paint them yellow anyway. Well, not yellow, Naples yellow. I don't like that colour that I did those, so I'm going to go over that with something else. It doesn't matter. I'll lift some of that out because it's too dark. And then what colour shall we do the ball? Shall we do that golden? Quinacridone gold. Leave a gap for the shine. And then holly again. This is just pop in a mixture and then lift some of it out. I'm going to use a small brush for the fir tree leaves. Make them a bit bigger, make them a bit darker. This is a size 3 Drawwell brush. It's a regular synthetic Japanese round. And we're going to just put the centre line in with paint a little bit there, and on the mistletoe as well. And I'm going to put a little bit of shadow on the ball. And then one of the ways I like to do twigs is I just wet the twig first, then I drop in a light colour, like a light, let's just say weak, burnt umber or something like that. And I just go where I had wetted, and then I think it looks quite good if you pick up a dark green or dark brown, whatever you want, and just drop in, just go along there and just drop in little dabs and let it run. And now I'm just doing some leaves. A little bit of holly here again. Good old holly. And I didn't put any berries up there, so I'm just going to go back and put some red berries in. The red really lifts the whole thing, doesn't it? So we put some more in here. And this is meant to be, here, this is meant to be like hawthorn berries, which I know not everyone in America knows what they are, but they're just a shrub that has red berries in the winter. Okay, and then let's do this ball the same. Do this one yellow too. And then the fir branch. And then we come down here with this stem again. Main thing to remember when you're painting anything like this is to try to keep things irregular, which is easier said than done. And we've got some nice little leaves here. And some more red holly berries. Do these ones while I've got the red on my brush, I think. And then these few more of the hawthorn berries. I think maybe we'll just put a few little blacks. In just to And these do need black dots on them. And sometimes just a few imaginary dots like that. I have no idea what they might be, but isn't there something? I'm sure there's something. I don't know what, but I'm sure there's something that would have blackberries. Not blackberries, but blackberries. Well, elderberries are very dark, aren't they? So we could pretend this was an elder. It just kind of lifts it a bit, doesn't it? Make these ones black then. We'll call that elderberries. I think there are still a few on the trees. And just bring the branch round underneath Mr. Cardinal's feet. Use a bit more of that green on those hollies. Okay, so now I'm going to stick with the small brush and a little bit of red with quinacridone gold for the lady. I know they're kind of beige, but artistic license. We'll make her a bit more yellowy. And then she has a little mask. Maybe she has a little bit of reddish here, perhaps. And then I think she has sort of pinkish, yellow, pinkish, reddish, yellowish beak. We'll make it that colour, perhaps. And then Monsieur le Cardinal. Of course, he has to be much more dramatic. And he has his mask as well. And I suppose he has a red beak too. we are. So, and then having done that, we can come back with our pen and we can touch up some of the paintwork, so to speak. For example, don't want to do that. Yeah, we can go around these berries again, make them a bit rounder if you want. Put some veins in if you want. Emphasize the eyes. That's hard to do with a brush. And so on. You can play with it for quite a while if you want. I think maybe we might want a bit more holly here. Another berry or two. I mean, you can adjust it as you go along. So there we are. One of those days today when perhaps you might not feel quite on top of your game, but nevertheless, I don't know if I can make this white pen work. That's the, I think both of those are probably dead. Let me see, this one will give me a white dot for the eye. There we are. Voila, as they say. So there's one little wreath. I'm sure you can make up a much better job of it than me if you take your time, like I don't, and make a nice Christmas card, I think. Yes, probably would. This is a robin which I painted last year. One of the very first videos that we put up on YouTube. I didn't even narrate it. I just did the painting, and it was one of our sort of trial ones at the very beginning. So I thought it would stand being done again with a bit of my yakking over the top. So hopefully that's okay with all of you. Now the background of this I'm going to do afterwards. I'm going to do the bird first, and for this particular bird I'm going to wet the whole area first of all, wet the entire bird, which I've just drawn in pencil, just ordinary pencil. As I said, you can get the sketch and download that from the website. We've also got a new product going up soon, which will be the first of our colouring book sets, which are going to be available for Christmas and with nice covers on and everything. So it's going to be a nice presentation. Okay, so there's the birdie, all wetted. And like I said, I often, not always, but often start with quinacridone gold all over. So I'm going to do that today. I'm just going to pop in some quinacridone gold. I'm painting on Etival, Clairefontaine Etival paper today, which is 100% cellulose, but that is not a bad thing for many reasons. I'm going to put in some blue around here for the shadow. And then I will look for and hopefully find some red. That's going to be the breast, I think. But first of all, I'll probably come in to the top of the bird's head. To make the burnt sienna darker, rather than going to something like burnt umber, which is a bit of a dull old colour, I usually add cobalt blue to the burnt sienna. And then I'm going to put in the red here. I have got used to painting with the water brushes lately, and I must admit there is something to be said for a water brush. Okay, so burnt sienna and cobalt blue again for the tail. I do recommend that you limit your palette to just a few colours. While this is wet, I'm going to pop the legs in here and just pull those down. The more colours you have, the more likely you are to end up with unpleasant blends. If you just stick to a limited palette like I've got here, you can mix the colours that you need from the colours that you have, and then you don't get unpleasant clashes. I'm going to put a little bit more quinacridone down here, and then I'm going to mix some violet with the burnt sienna to bring in over the top here. I'm trying to keep my head out of the way. I'm sure you don't want to see the top of my head while I'm painting. I know I don't. See what a beautiful chestnut colour the burnt sienna and the violet make. You wouldn't think so, would you? A bit more down here. The top of the tail behind the body. Make it dark there and then let it sort of go behind the bird a little bit. Might put a bit more of that in here. And I'm going to put his eye in. Might be a good idea to do that now. I should have done it at the beginning, I forgot. And then the beak. And then I'll probably just drag the colour out from the bird itself to do the beak colour. I'm not going to play with that too much because I do like to let the whole thing kind of mingle and mix on the paper, but I will just put a little bit more of that there. And I know it's going to dry a lot lighter than it looks because that's what happens. Okay, so now let's look at the holly. And we'll do the same thing again. We'll just put a little bit of water on the holly leaf. And then I'm going to mix quinacridone gold with sap green. And then we'll put that in fairly liberally. And then what I like to do is to come in with a darker tone or two and just drop that in like that. And then I'll use the same colour for maybe this one over here. I won't bother wetting it because my brush is fairly well endowed. And that's another different colour, different green. Then I'll pick up some more quinacridone and put that in, just so that it blends. I've just got sort of hint of holly, essence of holly. It's a nice name, isn't it, Holly? I always remember when I was given this ghastly name Diane, but when I was a kid, I wanted to be called either Holly or Heather. Isn't it strange? I wanted to be named after a plant. I'm sure my parents were very insulted when I didn't like the name they'd given me. You never get it right as a parent, do you? Okay, and a bit more quinacridone in there, and that will let that kind of do its thing. And then I do quite like giving a centre vein in holly leaves using a sharp implement. I used to use a credit card, but since I became the proud owner of a glass pen, I found that works much better. So I'll do that now. And then I can't do it any longer. I've got to use my water brush. I'm going to pick up some quinacridone gold and paint these berries. First of all with the quinacridone, and then I'm going to drop in some red, like that, on one side. And then I'm going to put violet underneath for the shadow. Like that. So do that again. Quinacridone first, and then red. Either any of your reds will do, doesn't matter which, because they all blend in. And then the violet underneath, and you can do that quite strong because that will blend too. And anyway, you want a bit of contrast. And if you think it's a bit too much of a good thing, just come back in with a bit more yellow and blend it in a bit. When that's dry, you can decide whether or not whether or not you want it redder. Depends whether you are going for a subtle look. You know, sort of, what do you call it? Muted colours. Or whether you want them a bit brighter. Okay, oh, I was wondering about that. I was thinking probably we would want one or two over here. And then now we need a bigger brush, probably, to do the background. And I'm going to let that dry, and then I might shape up his beak a little bit. And I'm not quite sure what. Oh, I'll tell you what I'm going to use. The cat's tongue from Zen Art, which I think is quite a good background painting brush. So I'm going to pretend that there's a little bit of sky around the back of him. So we'll do that first. And afterwards we'll make him stand on some snow, probably. So this is going to be cobalt blue. So mix up some quite nice cobalt blue and just dash that in loosely. Don't bother about coming right up against the bird, just do a kind of vignette kind of style, sort of faded out at the edges, like that. Make it a bit darker on one side than it is on the other. If you want, you can put a little bit of violet in to make it a little bit darker over this side. Like that. And then this is where the salt comes in. So when I did this last year, I did it by splashing water into the blue paint, but you can do that if you want, if you don't like the salt effect, but the salt can be quite good at producing snow, so we do that. And then we're going to want some more, what do you call it, cobalt blue for down below here, and I'm just going to spread that out using my water brush. And just one or two slight little bits there. Okay, and now we'll let it dry and we'll come back and see what needs to be done, if anything. So I'm just drying this painting off with a hairdryer because I wanted to make sure the salt areas were dry. And as you can see, it's curled like that, but we don't need to worry about that. Just turn it over and do the same thing on the other side. And it'll go flat again. So that's not a problem. So now I'm just going to take it down a little bit so that I can keep it firm while I take off the salt. So I'm just going to hold it there with tape and that. And I think the best way of taking the salt off, although it makes a horrible noise, is probably to scratch it with a good old cut up IKEA card. I found IKEA works the best. And so there we are, we do that, and we can take this off. Don't need that anymore. And I'll try to get this into the bin, not onto the floor. And there we are, we've got quite a nice snowy, icy effect there. And I think I just want to put a little bit more dark on that wing there. A little bit of purple in the brown. And maybe a little bit there, perhaps, and soften that down a tiny bit. And as I said, the colours do tend to fade away quite a lot. So depends on how you feel about it, but I don't know. I think I might be inclined to brighten it up a little bit with a little bit more blue there, a little bit more red. Make the breast a little bit redder. Okay, and we'll just let that dry too. I have here my number 7, I think, or 5, let me see. Have I guessed right? No, number 7. My number 7 Drawwell round nylon watercolor brush. And first thing to do here is probably, you can paint this in different ways, it's up to you, but I want to have the wet in wet effect here. If you're going to do, if you're still painting your Christmas cards, I usually do mine on Christmas Eve because I only make a couple. So I save that for the last minute. Okay, so I was going to say about the Clairefontaine Etival paper, that's what I'm using, which is cellulose paper with a decent amount of sizing in it. So you should get a reasonable blending of the colour on the paper. And so burnt sienna for the top of the head. And maybe a tiny bit down here. Try to use as few brush strokes as possible with this. And then we'll just pick up a very small amount of blue. And run that round there. And then vermilion. And then the key at this point is not to touch it, but just let it dry before. It has to be dry before you can put in the eye and the beak. But we can do the legs. So I shall do the legs with vermilion. And a little bit of sepia probably just at the back of the leg to give a little bit of shadow. And then the next thing, while we're waiting for that to dry, is to do the twig. And I'm going to similarly paint water onto the twig. I know robins are probably a little bit overdone at Christmas, but I think this one might make a nice card for a young person, perhaps, maybe. Who am I to say? I don't know what people like these days, but it's possible. Little bit of Scandi, hygge, or however you say that. How do you say that, Tamsin? She who has lived in Sweden?
Hygge.
Huh?
Hygge.
Hygge.
Something like that.
Hygge.
Hopefully there's a Swedish in place.
Hygge. It sounds like, what is it that rugby players say just before they start? There you go. Oh, that's different. Okay, so that's the first layer of the twig, and then we can come in with some brown and just run that along the bottom now. Don't need much. And then the pine cone is going to start off with sepia as the first coat of paint. And we're just painting sort of little crescent moons, just following the shape that we just did. Oh, it stopped. And then switching to black mixed in with the sepia, and then dropping on top of the other bits, leaving a few gaps. You can always add some white afterwards if you want to make it a little bit more snowy. So, I mean, this is just a simplified, very simplified pine cone. Then I'm going to mix some vermilion with some blue to make a bluish grey. And then I'm going to paint the, what do you call it? The pine leaf. Have any of you noticed that there are days when you're a little bit clumsier than other days? Yeah, this is so true. Okay, but that'll do. And we'll just blend this, because this didn't run very much. It's fairly dry, so we'll just blend that a little bit. And I think we might be dry enough there, so we want a very dark brown, almost black, for the little beak underneath. And then we're going to add some more brown on the top of the head. And then a little bit of orange underneath. And then a little bit of blue here. Okay, so we're not going to do any more than that. We'll let it dry now. And we'll just pop a tiny eye in, like that. We might do a stroke or two on his feet, perhaps. And then we have to let it dry before we can rub out the pencil lines. But otherwise that's done. And then I had in mind to put that aside and then do another one. So I'll need another piece of paper. Another card. Okay. And, oh yeah, I said I might put some gold spatters on that, didn't I? Let me try it on my one, the one that I did last year. See how that goes. So I'll get my Zen Art brush, which is already losing its printing. And yeah, I think okay, we need plenty of water in this. So you could do something like that. Or you might prefer to leave it completely bare. And then I'm going to do a super duper quick tree. We take our very fine pen and just draw a very simple line like that for the trunk of the tree, and then a stylized container for the tree. And then what I'm going to do is put some sort of pretend very simple branches coming out like that. Then I'm going to pick up some nice tree green, such as this one. I think this is sap green. And then I'm going to start by putting a sort of splosh of paint in the middle, like that. And then just keep it completely random. Then I'm going to paint. You might not like this design, but it's a little bit, what do you call it? Scandi, navy. And so then you pick up some of your starry colours from Kuretake. And you're just going to put some balls like that on the ends of those branches, keeping it as random as possible. And then you're going to get another clean brush to save wasting all of that, and pick up some more green. And I might get a thicker pen because that looks a little bit feeble. And go over those branches. And I think then we need to put a few more balls in the middle here. I don't like that one there. So there we are. 2 super quick Christmas cards in the sort of Scandi style. Robin, and without the spots and with the spots. And a tree. I want to try to not quite do everything. Well, you know, what can you do? It's got to have a certain theme, and therefore there's no way out. So Father Christmas, here we come. What I'm going to do first of all in this painting is I'm going to wet this piece of stretched arches. Thank you, Denise. I'm going to wet this all over, and then I'm going to lay in a variegated wash, a variegated graduated wash. Yes, that's right. So I'll just let that soak for a second. I'm just using my Ron Ranson Hake there for that. And the colours I'm going to be using for this background are, I'm going to be using these Daniel Smith Primatech colours. I'm starting to learn these words. And I'm going to be using Mayan Blue and Amethyst. And I've put some water on there to start softening it up a bit. And what I'm going to basically do is mix those two colours together roughly, and that's what makes it kind of variegated. And then I'm just going to drop the colour in really strongly around the edges. And I don't want it too green, and that's why I've added the amethyst. But I thought it would be interesting to see how the because these are called these Primatech colours, they're supposed to be granulating. And there it goes. That was the cat. Tamsin. That was the cat. It's all right. We've let Arthur out for the first time today, and Tamsin is like a new mother. She's very anxious about her child going to nursery school for the first time. So anyway, he is fine. Primatech colours, granulating, hopefully. So I'm dropping this in quite strongly and mixing the two together on the paper. I don't believe in mixing colours ahead of time in palettes, really, because you don't get the same effect. So I'm just ladling this on. What's the word they use? Not ladling, but slathering. Yes, it's one of those words that you recognise when you see it written, but you never know quite how to pronounce it. There's quite a lot of words like that. Anyway, so the darkest part is going to be in the corners. We're going to slather on lots of paint there. And you do know I'm making this up as I go along, don't you? You know that I haven't done this before, don't you? No practicing. So the idea is it's going to be light in the middle, gradually darkening as it goes out. Now, there's lots of different ways you can do this. You can add more water like I am here. Or you can do various other things. But so I'm going to do it like that. I need to bring it down here a little bit more. And at the bottom, I'm going to put some houses and some Christmas trees down the bottom. And Father Christmas is going to be there. Now, as I was saying, there's lots of different ways you could do this. And one way is to add plenty of water in the middle. Excuse me. And then kind of sweep it out a little bit. Do that. That works quite well. That will give you a kind of light area in the middle. But then I want to add some texture. So I think I might add a bit of salt. I don't think that this Primatech paint is going to do very exciting, so we'll make it more exciting by doing a little bit of texturizing. Just a little bit of salt into the wet paint to give it a bit of character. And then to lighten it up in certain places, we've got, this is Winsor & Newton white ink. You could use white gouache. Winsor & Newton white gouache is quite good. Or you could use Dr. P.H. Martin's permanent, no, what is it called? Bleed proof white. You could do that too. Anything really. If you haven't got anything else, you've probably got Chinese white in your set of white paints. Sorry, in your set of paints, if you've got a tin of paints. The only problem with that is it tends to be not particularly opaque. It's not meant to be all that white, but it would probably be better than nothing. So I'm trying to vary the size of these stars. And we all know, don't we, that galaxies the heavens are full of stars, especially now we have all those satellites. And you look up in the sky and you have to ask yourself the question, is that a star I see before me? Is that the Star of Bethlehem? Or is that just the Telstar satellite that's producing my television picture? Which takes the romance out of the sky, in my opinion. There we are. So lots and lots of stars or satellites. And I think that'll probably do. And we'll let that dry. When it is dry, I'll put some, probably put some silver spatter on there, but I wanted the white to really just kind of break the whole thing up into a sort of, I don't know, kind of ethereal sort of look. And I've traced out the picture that I'm going to put on top, which is this. So we're going to have a little Father Christmas with his sleigh and his reindeer, or some of them, and some houses and some trees down the bottom. So that will be step number 2. And right now I'm going to turn you off, let you dry, and I'll be back in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail, or indeed a reindeer's tail. See you in a minute. Before we get going again, I thought I'd just show you, can't show you very well, but I'll show you the edge of one of the mugs that we've got for sale. This has got red bush tea in it, and that's what I normally try to drink to avoid too much caffeine, which doesn't do me very much good. So yeah, we have these printed for us, and they're available for you. So go to dianeantone.com and have a look. You can see them better there. There are 2 or 3. In fact, I think there's 4. And we've also got them here on YouTube. If you go to our shop, if you go to the channel, our channel homepage, I like to call it, And there you'll see a link to shop, and we've got a few things there for you if you're interested. Okay, so this has dried and this is looking quite nice. I think that's a lovely textured surface. I hope you agree. And so what I'm going to do, because now what I need to do is I've done this tracing of Father Christmas and his sledge, and I'm not going to put the moon there. I've changed my mind about that. I'm going to take that out. I'm going to put the moon up here, I think. And then we're going to have some pine trees and some cottages, houses, some nice sort of, I don't know, whimsical, if you like, whimsical houses down the bottom there. So I want to trace this because I want to make sure I get it in the right place. So I'm going to cut this now off of the board, and that's okay because I stretched the paper onto the board in order that it wouldn't buckle when I did the wet in wet part, which is now finished. And so the next stage is going to be very much painting in a drier fashion, so we won't have to worry about buckling. And in any case, because it's got this supportive strip of paper around the outside, so I'm cutting well into the brown paper so that if you wanted to frame it, you wouldn't need to lose any of the picture. So you might just have to go around that again, loosen it. Come on guys, let go. There we are. And that's our background now. And you can do this with so many different designs. And then what I need now is my light box. And a few people have asked about this, where it comes from and everything. I got mine from Amazon, in Amazon.com in the US, because I couldn't get one from here. It's amazing what Amazon.fr doesn't have. So we'll turn that on. It's Light Energy is the name of it. It's Amazon's choice. So we'll pop that there. And then we can position the painting wherever we want. So that's fun, isn't it? So what you can do, somebody suggested this and it's a good idea. If you want, you can put a little bit of tape to hold the tracing in place. I'm just using a bit of washi tape. And then this will move around without the one underneath moving with it. So we want the houses at the bottom there, but the point is you can trace this, and then if you want to trace the houses, you can move it to where you want them. So I think I'll put them about there. And I'm going to trace them with a pen, the Stettler liner, because I'm going to paint them in black anyway. So it's just easier. So I just want the outline there. And then the trickiest bit is the reindeer. It's definitely useful to have the thing to trace with. And if you want, you can download the tracing from Antone.com online.
Santa Claus is coming home to me. Yeah, this year Santa Claus is coming home to me.
On my website, that is to say. Takes a surprising amount of concentration, trying to stop them looking like dogs.
Standing up close by the Christmas tree, glimmering light, I am right where I wanna be. I will be home for a couple of days, wander around with you. You and me in the cold,
Failing a little bit there, but never mind. Rudolph the red-nosed dog deer.
there is no way trying. You better loosen your belt. Drinking hot wine by the fire, don't care anything else. It's Christmas and some kind of love, my friend. I pray it will never end. Do you like to be here too? It's Christmas. Outside snows.
Okay, so having done that, I'm then going to drive you even crazier by filling it in with black. And I'm using a black brush pen here, simply because it's easier. You could use any kind of marker pen. And he's obviously in silhouette because he's in the sky.
Darling, it's time for your present. Come over here. Now it is time to get out in the snow, lighting a light with you. Choirs will sing and the joy bells will ring. Nobody loves you as much as I do. It's a wonderful
And
floor to the ceiling.
this is one of those things that's kind of
Drinking hot wine by the fire. Here on our own, we got nothing to fear.
relaxing and meditative. So
It's Christmas and some kind of love, my friend.
let's hope Tamsin's playing some nice music in the background
And hang a wreath on your door.
for us.
It's Christmas.
Donna and Blitzen and
Outside snow's glistening.
Rudolph and
It's just you,
Dasher and Dancer and
just you and me tonight. It's just you and me tonight. I'll spend all this Christmas
I remember when we were living in Canada, we had a hard time living in Canada trying to make a living. And one year we decided to have a cart, you know those carts that they have in the mall at Christmas time. People come in with stuff, special stuff for Christmas and everything, and suddenly you feel like you're in a market place, and that's nice. Anyway, so this one time, this is years ago now, we decided to have a cart and we were selling gifts there. That was me and my husband and the kids. And one thing we hadn't anticipated when we did this was that if you're exposed to non-stop Christmas songs every day for 2 months, you stand a very good possibility of going crazy and never being able to hear a Christmas Carol again without cringing. You know, I used to love those things like, what's that one? The bells. Something about bells. Anyway, it was a long time after that before I could listen to those songs anymore. Anyway, memories, not necessarily good ones. I remember the day after we finished, when we shut down for the last time, and I went home and I collapsed and I lost my voice. I'd done so much talking for a month, 6 weeks, however long it was a long time. And I just couldn't speak for ages, about a whole week I think it was. It was quite nice. I had to actually use sign language. Right then, so that's that done, and now we will draw the houses. So I'll move that a little bit, and like that. So now we need a pencil, and I'm just going to roughly draw these in. You can let your imagination run riot here and do whatever you feel like. You could put little people coming up the path, you could put animals, just whatever takes your fancy. Do them kind of rounded because that way they seem a little bit more elf-like or gnome-like or something. Makes me think of those gingerbread houses. A lovely idea of Christmas from Germany. I think they probably do Christmas better than anyone else. Their Christmas markets and their Christmas biscuits, Lebkuchen, Spekulatius, all that stuff. Wonderful. I remember going out on Lake Constance one Christmas doing a special trip when I worked in the school for the residential home for disabled people in Überlingen, near Überlingen. And I had to take this group of disabled people out on the boat. And one came from Germany, one from Switzerland, and one from Austria. And they all came out on this special Christmas trip and all met in the middle of Lake Constance and said Happy Christmas to each other across the national boundaries. It was rather lovely. Right then. That's that, so we'll turn that off and put that away for the minute. And what have we got here? Okay, so now I need my watercolours. We won't need very much, will we? Because I'm going to do this in shades of blue, probably. So let's find a pen, a brush. And I don't know if this is going to work. I do prefer my little dishes, I must admit. So we'll do it that way. I think, what colour is this? This looks like it's seen better days, hasn't it? I think that's quinacridone gold under there. Which is what I'm hoping. Right, we have Caribbean blue, I think this is. That's the same as phthalo blue. This is ultramarine. This is French ultramarine. We don't need both of those. That's Windsor violet. This is olive green. And I think that'll do. I might not need that. I might need phthalo blue. Right then, so, and then we need a little dish to do the mixing in. Okay, so, going to paint the houses in blue. Actually, that's a good point. I will paint the houses in blue, but first what I need to do is paint the lights behind the windows, in the windows. So we'll put some yellow in here. There we are. Just a couple of little okay, so here we go with the blue. Try not to let that run too much into the yellow. You could do this with brush pens if you wanted to. I did ponder that. I thought to myself, I could do that with brush pens or even a water brush. Could do that. But I decided not to. We could have a little bit of smoke, couldn't we, coming out of the chimney if we wanted to. And then I was thinking I would do the trees in a kind of, I don't know, a sort of loose way, not in any way attempting. I'm just making this up as I'm going along. Not attempting realism at all. A bit more yellow near the top. Just let it, I don't know what it's going to do. I am working on Arches paper. And I'm basically mixing phthalo blue with Winsor violet to get these bluey colours. You know how when it's dark, green doesn't really look green, does it? I'm going to paint over that. Another blue house. Just a little bit of pale blue in the roof to indicate the snow. Chimney. And this house also blue. On the blue side anyway. When you get to this point in a painting, you never really know how it's going to turn out. And you're sort of trying out different things and different colours, and you're thinking to yourself, if this kind of goes wrong, what am I going to do to correct it? And when you say to yourself, when it goes wrong, what do I exactly mean by that? What does it mean for it to go wrong? What did I expect? It's like life, really. Right. I think this one wants to be bluer. I don't think. Might be quite hard to make that any darker. Okay, so now we need to let that dry and we'll come back and put the snow on. So I've had a little bit of a rethink about the moon, and I've decided I'm going to put the moon in here. It was a bit of an option to put it in the sky, but it looks now as if it's going to go there. So I've just taken a little cup and tried that out to see, and I'm going to do it sort of extravagantly huge. And then I'm going to take the Starry Colours here by Kuretake, and let's go for the white gold, and we'll just paint in a sort of shiny moon type of thing around the legs of the reindeer a little bit. And it's when it's dry, I'll rub out the pencil line, but I need that to guide me. So we're just, as I said before, I'm making this up as I go along, so bear with me. And I'm probably then, I think, going to give it a little bit more, what's the word, variation, make it stand out a little bit. We'll add some of the gold. That's light gold. And you could, I think maybe, yeah, that one. So it shows a little bit more. That's champagne gold. Just put that there. That's better. Make it look a little bit more like the moon with some craters and things. And let that dry. And I suppose while we're at it with the silver and gold, we might as well pop in some stars. As I said, I would do that because I like to do that. It's fun. And yeah, so let's decorate these trees in a simple, stylized way. Pretend they're Christmas trees like you have at home. Make them pretty. Just any kind of pattern, really. Super idea for painting with children. Wish we'd have had these wonderful silvers and golds when my children were small. We would have had a lot of fun. Make this one. I didn't like what I've done on there at the beginning, so I think we might lighten up this one too. And then I think I'm going to take the black pen. I've already done this one, and I'm going to outline the roof and the chimney pot and the window. And this one. First step, if you want to make more than one card, the first step is to wet all three of them and then put the first layer on and wait for it to dry, because the second step, not completely dry, the second step is you have to do it on damp paper. Right, so I'm just using a spray bottle here to spray some water on, and then I'm going to pick up some green. This is, I think this is, what do you call it? Hooker's green. And then I'm just doing the background, and I'm just painting loosely and irregularly. I'm not smoothing out. You could smooth it out if you wanted a regular background. But I'm a bit irregular. Pull that water down. I like irregular, but make sure you go right to the edges. And get rid of any puddles. So you want basically a little bit more colour than you think you're going to need, because it always dries lighter. And this is a colour that particularly dries light. So you put that one aside and I'll do another one. And what you want to do is you want to wait until the shine goes off. When the shine has gone off the paper where you've just put your wet wash, then you can do the next stage. In other words, the shine goes off when it's partially dry and the paint has been absorbed. By the paper. Terrible weather here today. It's been blowing a gale all night, and this is amazing. We had some snow. It never snows here. I always remember when we first moved here, I asked my next door neighbour, who is, God rest his soul, he's not with us anymore. I said to him, does it snow here ever? And he said, never. And it really doesn't. We had one, it didn't. We had one year when we had a lot of snow, 2010. But normally we don't have any, and never in November. Okay. Okay, I'll put that one aside to dry. And while this one is just drying a little bit more, I'll talk about what I've got here in the way of equipment. So we have our Hooker's green. You could use any green, just whatever you have. We could use olive green if you want it to be a bit more subtle. You could use phthalo green if you want it to be, well, it'd be similar, but it's a little bit more yellowish. This is a different kind of Hooker's green. They do vary. What's this one? That's sap green, that one. You could use that. Any green, really, it doesn't matter. And then I've got red. This is Old Holland Permanent Red, but it's basically cadmium red. So you could use that, or you could use a scarlet colour. So if you wanted it brighter, that's an orangey colour, would be, oh gosh, I can't remember. Come back to that. Or alizarin crimson, which is a more bluish colour, so that would give a more subtle effect. Maybe we'll use alizarin on one of these. So there's that. And then I've got these starry, whatever's, starry colours from Kuretake. There's other people who make the same kind of thing. I'll put a link on the website. And these are sort of just metallic golds and silvers. Then I've got this, which is glitter glue, which is basically a bottle of glue with glitter mixed in. Apologies to people who aren't glitter girls. You just leave it off. But it actually is quite fun to use. And then my brushes, I've got a large round. This is a size 14 Drawwell nylon round brush. You could just as easily use any other round brush. I also have a set of Zen Art nylon brushes too. They have a good deal where you get, I don't know, 6 brushes for $20 or something. So they're quite good. These ones come from Japan. You can order them direct if you're interested in doing that. Okay, so what we're going to do first, what else have I got here? Is that it? Yeah, I think, oh yeah, brushes. The other brush I'm going to use is a sword liner. I'm going to use that for flicking the paint on. And you could also use a rigger. There's a rigger in the Zen Art set. This is a rigger. It's got hairs on it that are longer than the usual. Some riggers are longer than others. This one's not so very long. That's why I like the sword liner. The bristles, the hairs are twice as long as a normal brush. So having let the shine go off, I think you can probably see the shine's gone off. Having let the shine go off, I'm going to pick up some thick colour, thick of the same colour, and I'm just going to draw Christmas tree shaped triangles like that, and they will fuzz. And we're going to vary the size and have perhaps one going off the page up here. And you really don't want them accurate in any way, so just paint them however you feel. Different sizes. Maybe different darknesses. Easy project, this one, to do with children as well. And when it does this, don't worry about that, because you can just come in and blot it away to bring back the shape. And it doesn't matter. In fact, I think it's probably better if you do this, because it gives you a more random background. And don't worry about it looking a mess at the moment. Because that's what you want. It's not a mistake. Okay, so that's that, and maybe you might want to put a little bit more in these ones down here that are a bit imperfect. And then we're going to pick up some red. Whoops, I don't know, I'm dropping everything today. It's because I cut my thumb. We're just going to paint the pots very simply at the bottom. Like that. If you're going to do more than one, you probably don't need to wash your brush off. That's a size 5 or 7. And then at this point, now we're going to take our rigger or sword liner. And you've got different things you can do here. You could use white for the sort of effect of snow. If you haven't got the shiny colours, just use white. Or you could mix the white, like I'm going to, with the shiny. And whenever you do your spattering, a couple of things. It's probably better to stand up. Don't do it right next to your computer like I have. I've now got white dots all over my MacBook screen, which is just not ideal. Just adjusting the amount of water and paint. This brush doesn't want to give it up. Oh, I already said that. We had snow last night. That's what's made me think of doing this. There we go. Finally. Be surprised actually how much water you need to make your spatters work. And then I'm going to switch to the gold. And that's a little bit more free-flowing, that one, the gold, rather than the silver, which is a bit reluctant. Okay, and when that dries, when these Kuretake colours dry, they intensify. So if they don't look very bright at the beginning when it's wet, don't worry, they will improve. Now I'm going to my glitter glue here, and I'm just going to put, this has been sitting in a box for a couple of years, so it might not work very well. I'm sure it will though. I don't think I would be able to spatter with this though. So we just try to put a blob of gold on the top of each tree. It's gone a bit thicker than it should be. But hey, this is semi-abstract Christmas trees, haha. I was looking at a book by Anne Blockley this morning that's just come back from Spain, where I had a bunch of stuff that was in storage and it's just arrived back home. And she's got a chapter called Abstract Beginnings. And you start by doing a regular painting and then you gradually make it less and less realistic. Some of us don't have to try very hard to make things look less realistic. Okay, so now I'm going to let that dry. So that's dry now. I've just subjected it to a little bit of hair drying to make it speed up a bit. And now I'm just using a paper knife, you know, one of those things you use to open envelopes, to cut off the paper from the block. You just need to be careful on the corners. And then, as I said earlier, this one's got a sort of fabric strip around the outside edge. And if that doesn't come off easily, you might want to use a knife if you get something like this. But I have a funny feeling that this is a system that most generally isn't used these days. So there we are. And then what I would do next is I would take one of these Strathmore cards and then just stick it on with glue or with, what do you call it, double-sided sticky tape, like sellotape with sticky on both sides. And this was my trial one that I did earlier. And then you can write your greeting on there, or you can put the greeting on the inside. So that's that one. Also, you could use it as a gift tag. And for example, literally, or a bookmark. I know I had a knife here somewhere. Oh, thank you.
Little helper.
What was it? Fanny Craddock and Johnny. Thank you, Johnny. Just, you can cut it in half, and lo and behold, that could be a bookmark, or you can cut it again. And it becomes a gift tag. I did that last year. They always turn out differently. I put a piece of string through the hole at the top there, and then you can fix that to your gifts. And it's actually quite nice, I think, and very quick, and the sort of thing you can do with the kids very easily. So these are now dry, and this is pretty much where I left it with you a few minutes ago. And it's quite possible that you might be happy to go with something at this level of detail. But after I had to think about it, I did a couple of things here which you can easily do. I added, first of all, some spatter using my trusty Boots toothbrush and some white gouache, which I sprayed over the whole thing. And then I spattered on some of this gold starry colours. These big blobs here was that. And then I did some spatter in white. And then I trimmed the card around the outside edges a little bit to make it neat. And I've just stuck it onto a Strathmore greetings card, ready-made. These are really nice actually, because they're somewhat better than folding a piece of card in half, which can lead to a not terribly neat fold actually, and you might not get it exactly right. So this is a good way of doing it. I'm sure most of you know about the Strathmore watercolour cards. You can actually paint directly onto these, and I have done that in the past. I'm just wondering what I did with the trees I did a little while ago. I'll have to do another video on that to show you, but you can paint directly onto this. But this was the block, which I suggest is a good idea if you're painting with a lot of water, because it won't buckle. You don't want to have to stretch a piece of card like that, a piece of paper like that, because it's too small really. You'd lose a lot of the size. And so I did another one after that, which I've cut into a bookmark shape, and I've just put a nice silk tassel on there. You can get those from Amazon easily enough. So that's quite nice. And if you cut them down a little bit more, you can turn them into tags for the tree. So to put on the presents that go on the tree, and I just attached a pine cone to that and a bit of decorative Merry Christmas ribbon, which was left over from last year, as you can see. Christmas present was attached to this. It wasn't last year actually, it was the year before. I didn't do any of this last year. Today we're going to have a little bit of fun, and I realised when I was looking at the videos that we've done this year for Christmas, I don't think I've done a Christmas tree. And I've got quite a good way of doing quite a nice little stylish one, which in different ways, in different styles, different ways. So what we're going to do, you know how it is when you start and you don't want to mark the paper with a pencil, and this is a way around that, because we're going to use a homemade stencil basically. I've got a piece of A4 paper here, which I'm going to just fold in half, and then I've got one here that I did earlier, so I'm just going to measure it. And what you do is you simply mark 3 points like that, and then you're going to cut between those points to make the shape of a Christmas tree. So you can do it with scissors or you can do it with a knife, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be super accurate, but to get that line straight, it'd probably be easier and quicker just to run along it with a knife. And you obviously pick the size yourself, as what size you want to make this tree. So there we are, we've got a perfect triangle. So we take a piece of A5, that's to say it's half a sheet of letter size paper, more or less, 5 by 8. And this is Etival, Clairefontaine Etival, cheap cellulose paper, but really good for this kind of thing. So we just place the stencil there, and it's a great one for kids, and it's really nice and fun, and you never know quite how it's going to turn out, so you know, it's a little bit creative. Doesn't matter if it doesn't sit down completely flat, that will just give you a little bit more interest, be a little bit more fun. Colours I'm going to use today, I've got here cadmium yellow, any yellow will do. This is green, this is I think sap green, let me see, yeah, sap green. This is another green, I don't know what that is, I think that might be sap green too. Anyway, this is olive green. This is phthalo blue, and here we've got hooker's green. So those are the different greens and yellow and blue that I'm going to be using for this. And I might, yeah, this is to make this or this or this or this darker. Then you need a toothbrush. And the first one I'm going to do is probably the simplest, which is this one, which I think is quite effective. What do you mean, Zen? What do you mean? Woof. I know you need a walk, but just hang on, hang on in there. First colour we want to pick up is some yellow. So we mix up some yellow, and then using a toothbrush, we're just going to spatter that on. Doesn't matter whether it's a fine spatter or a coarse spatter, but just spatter that on all over. And then what I'm going to do is pick up a little bit of phthalo blue and mix it with some green to make a slightly darker green. And then I'm going to spatter that on. And then I'm going to take a rigger. This is a Zen Art number 2 rigger, and I'm just going to pick up some very juicy green and just drop on some bigger blobs like that, and then carefully lift off the stencil, and we have a very nice tree, which when it's dry will look good. You have to make sure you don't make a mark. If you do, just grab some water and wash it off, and that will disappear. I made a little bit of an error there, but that doesn't really matter. Just get rid of that. Yeah. The good thing about this paper is it tends to lift off quite well. If any of your drops have gone a little bit big, you can just adjust them a little bit so that you get an even effect. If you want to, you can add other blobs, or you can join some of them up. You can play with that however you want. And then I would be inclined to get rid of that, and then just bring some green and just pull down the trunk there, and then pick up any random colour that you fancy and just do a stroke underneath to indicate the ground. And when that's dry, you can come back with another stencil which you've prepared earlier, which will be like this. I just printed these on the internet, some stars. I've cut one out, and then I'll just put that there and go over that with yellow paint or gold, if you have it, which I did, and it comes out like that. So you have a little gold star at the top, or silver, or whatever you fancy. So gift tag, eh? You can do it any size you like. Second one is going to be on the same paper, obviously, if I can find it. Anyhow. And it's so quick if you do it like this. It really speeds things up. So we put the tree on again and make it more or less central, more or less straight. Oh look, that's not good, is it? I'm a terrible messy painter, I really am. You've probably noticed this. Okay. And now this one's going to be, first of all, green, yellow rather, but big drops. Just trying to remember exactly what I did. So I'm not spattering it by going like that this time so much as going like that. And you can bet your bottom dollar that when you're doing it on camera, it will go partially wrong. But never mind, I'll just lift that out. And it may turn out to be better that way. You never know. So we want lots of green on this one. And then we want some dark, I remember now what I did. Then you want some dark green. And then probably a bit more yellow. Right. So there we are, we've got our tree shape, and this one's a little bit different because what we're going to do is we're going to sit down with a rigger. No, well, not a rigger, actually. I'm going to use this sword liner, but if you've only got a rigger or a small brush, that's fine too. And then I'm going to, first of all, we'll just pull down the trunk. And I know the trunks are usually brown, but this one isn't, and that's just going to be nice and pale. And we might add a bit of other colour to it later. But then what we're going to do with this one is we're going to start to just bring, and this is actually quite good fun, because you're going to just drag the branches out from the side. Very airy-fairy, light, random strokes to make a really nice tree. And this one will be bigger than the others because you're bringing it all out to the side. I might just dab off a little bit of what I've got here. So you just bring it out. And then you're going to go in and drop some more colour. Just make the whole thing a little bit random. Some dark colour to sort of indicate the darker part of the tree. Some lighter bits. You can make it as big as you like, but you've got the basis of the triangle. And this is quite fun. You see, I've decided as I've come down here to go over the trunk because I'm going to put another one in afterwards. And the thing is, this is quite interesting if you're interested in colour mixing at all and blending, because as you do this, you'll see all sorts of different shades coming out. See what happens when you put blue directly in. You get some really nice darks like that. So you might want to do that. You can hear some clattering in the background. That's because Zen's getting ready for his walk. And he's like a little bit impatient. A poor little sausage, he didn't get out this morning because it was so wet. And how you decide to finish it off at the end there, that's entirely up to you. You could drag that down a little bit or a lot. I quite like the way the dark green is going where I'm putting it in there, and you can see it's what's the word? It's bleeding into itself to give a nice effect of branches. You can use the sword liner on the side like that, and that gives you branch effect with minimum effort. It's always good, don't you think? Minimum effort. I'm going to go on like this until I run out of paper. Right, so then I'm going to drag down the stalk a little bit. Then get a slightly different colour green. And just do a little bit of ground underneath there. And you can always adjust it, like I said, if you feel it's a little bit too light, dark rather, you can lift it out a little bit with a piece of paper. When it's dry, you can go in and shape it up a little bit. And you can also then put your star on top. So that's number 2. So now number 3, variations on a theme of trees. So I'm just going to put down the same template as we used before. It's going to dry off some of that rather over prolific paint. And so we pop that on there, and then I'm going to use my Molotov Cocktail Graphics Art Masking Fluid pen. Let's get it working here. I used it only 2 seconds ago, but it needs pumping again, priming, so that it gives me nice dots. And then I'm going to put on here the places where I want to put the baubles. Should be irregular as possible. So something like that. And then we have to just let that dry. Maybe I'll put another one there. So let that dry, and then we'll come in with the spatter for the next stage. So the masking fluid is now dry, and I've put the stencil over the top again, and what I've got here is I've got it kind of, what's the word, it's a little bit above the level of the paper underneath that I'm going to be painting onto. The reason is if I want it to actually go outside a little bit. So this one, we wanted it as close as possible, so it will give us a nice straight line. But this one, I want to do it so that there might be a bit of spatter outside of the line. So we're kind of aiming it a little bit outside of the guide, if you see what I mean. And then we'll do the same with the green. Have whatever colour green you want. Obviously, it's up to you. And you can put as much. It's quite hard to restrain yourself, really. But sometimes less is more. So I'll just do that much, perhaps. Lift that off. Maybe we could do with a little bit more outside edge. I think I might have to turn that round to be able to do that. So just turn that like that. That like that. And then just try and shoot a little bit over the edges. A little bit awkward, but alright. There we are, that's fine. And again, there's just a little bit too much there, so I just vacuum that up. If you're really careful about this and take your time, you'll get an even spray. But, so now we have to let that dry again. I might just put a little bit more of the because my idea was to have it going over the edges a little bit. Like that. And what I'm going to do here, because that's going to annoy me, this is how to fix, if you can, a mistake. And now we have to wait for it to dry, or we can always, if that's dry, then we can just get rid of the masking fluid, and you'll have little circles which you'll be able to paint in red without it being tinted by the colour underneath it. So you'll be able to do it like this, and if you do it nice and carefully. And then what I did afterwards was I spattered some red all over the place. That's not quite dry. You can rub it off with your finger, but I have enough trouble with my fingers as it is. My hands are in a bit of a desperate state at the moment. I don't know, for a part of the world where it does nothing but rain all winter, and I mean it's like Vancouver, my God, every type of rain under the rainbow. We've had 10 rainbows in the last 5 days, which tells you something. But we have every different kind of rain that you can possibly imagine. Today we've had torrential rain, we've had sleet, we've had hail, we've had drizzle, and at the moment we haven't got any rain. It's stopped, but it's forecast to start again this afternoon. So you have all these different kinds of rain. It's very exciting, really. This part of the world, all the villages start with plu. That's the first syllable of most of the names of the villages. We live in near Plounevezel, there's Plumenac, there's Plourac, there's Plounevey du Fou, there's loads and loads. And plu, do you know what that means? That means mud. Really, that says it all. So now you can paint in your circles for the baubles. Just leave a tiny little bit of white, if you can, for the light to catch. Try and make them round, it's always a good idea. I'll put one there. I know it'll be a bit dark, but it really needs one. There we are, there's our baubles on the tree. And then you have choice now, of course, as we always do. That's the wonderful thing about doing watercolour. You can spatter it with some gold if you want. You could spatter it with white if you wanted to. I need to find my star. Oh, my star girl. Star, how are you? Oh, this is star. So you can probably pop that on here. This one I'm going to paint. I think that might run. I think I've made the paint too wet. That's okay. And there we are. So that's that. As you can see, I've got a bit of a mucky bottom, like my dogs usually have. So cut that off. Cut that off. Oops. So there we are, there's that one, and that's fine. There's this one, and you could decorate that, of course. You could put lovely, maybe I'll try that on this one. I haven't quite finished this one. You could put, using your gold paint. This gold paint is by Kuretake, Starry Colours it's called, and it's quite nice. You can mix it up quite thick. And the thing is, when it's wet, it doesn't really look very gold. But when it's dry, it dries much more shiny. I'm not very artistic when it comes to decorating trees. I'm sure you'll do a much better job than me. I think I'm going to put some spatter on that too. So you do whatever you want. And then we want the star on the top, don't we? Just to complete it. It's better.